You don't hear it, you feel it. It just shook my chest. So around 2000, I worked at Ferrari Central Florida, and it was actually a sister store to a dealer in New Jersey. It was a consignment sort of setup. All the vehicles were used and only there on friends of the owners to, hey, let's start building a Ferrari dealer in Orlando. So one of the vehicles that was there was a beautiful F40. Working there, I'd gotten to move it around and sit in and just dream as an 18, 19-year-old young man that one day maybe I'd be able to actually turn the key and drive it. But as I'm detailing it and moving around one day, the lead tech, Russ, walked out and he's like, you want to know a funny story on this? I was like, sure. He's like, this thing has burned straight to the ground. I was like, okay, funny, very funny. This thing is mint. He's like, nope, it actually has. He's like, the New Jersey establishment of this also has a really fantastic world-class restoration shop. He's like, this one was out on track, I believe at Daytona, just with some potential customers trying to sell it out. I think it was $450,000 was the price on it in 2000. A lot of money in 2000, $450,000. So they had it on the track, just, exercising it, and an oil line blew and the engine caught on fire. And they tried to get it out. According to him, the fire didn't make it past the firewall. But the engine, all the rear assemblies, everything cooked totally to the ground. So they loaded it up, shipped it up to New Jersey, and spent, if I remember, it was between 2 and 3 years completely tearing that thing down because it hadn't been titled yet. It was still new. If you were to look at the title, perfectly fine. Nothing had ever happened in this car. And I never saw it move. It didn't sell in the time that I worked there, so I don't know if it had any strange driving characteristics of being a completely rebuilt car. But I've since looked into that restoration shop up there, and they seem to know what they're doing, so it was probably perfectly fine, but also quite remarkable that it's completely been toast before. And you've got to think, so internet was in its infancy, so there was no Carfax or VINwiki. There was no way to know the history of a vehicle at that time reliably. So there's no way to know if you're the owner of it today that this had it completely burned down to the ground. It's probably maybe flipped hands a couple of times, but yeah, they could have it right now and have no clue that this thing has been completely torn down and put back together. On one end of the dealer, you had the red, beautiful F40, and off to the side corner, you had the LM. And it was really interesting to see them side by side because you could see the different aero package that made it distinct. I still, to this day, will always remember slicks that wide. And I've not been around a paddock for racing outside of MotoGP. So I'm not really accustomed to seeing race tires like that, but absolutely blew my mind to see this vehicle, but I'd never heard it run. A Ferrari Challenge weekend was coming up, and the owner of the dealership up in New Jersey said, hey, the owner of the LM wants to come take it out on track for Ferrari Challenge. I was like, yes, we're going to hear this thing fire up. I wasn't going to go to the Ferrari Challenge race. I just wanted to hear this thing start because just triple pipes, no cats, no mufflers, just straight pipe. And I was like, and they had told me the turbos were bigger from stock and the boost was elevated to a point where they were like, we don't know what it is exactly, but it's much higher than stock. We can tell you that. So we pushed it past the big double doors to get it back to the shop, waiting for the truck that was supposed to come later that day. And, several hours went by and, we're going about our business. I'm in the front showroom moving a few cars around, just pushing them. And what could only be equated to a train that decided to go through the back shop just existed. And just the most loud, thunderous, terrifying, but beautiful noise I had ever experienced. And I say experienced because you don't hear it, you feel it. It just shook my chest. And I was like, dear God, what just happened? And what is currently happening? Because it wasn't one noise, it was the beginning of it. I kind of run back there in a startled, like, oh my gosh, something's exploding. And it's the LM. They have started it up to move it. And it was the most glorious mechanical noise I think I've still ever heard to this day. And I've been at NHR events with the Top Fuel dragsters, and it's not that loud because that's deafening and painful. But for a road-going car that's supposed to run longer than 4 seconds, it was remarkable. And I would say anybody who can go to whatever car event, go to whatever race series, if you can get near a straight-piped LM vehicle of any sort, do it. Do whatever you have to do. That's such a glorious experience to feel your chest just vibrating. Oh my goodness. This is 20 years ago, and to now I can still see when I opened that door and just saw that thing it wasn't even sitting, and we couldn't sit still. It was just going. Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Premier Financial Services has been a sponsor of VINwiki for the last 4 years, and we can't thank them enough for their support, and we love them for that, but also because their Simple Lease truly is a tremendous product in the world of exotic car financing. They allow you to minimize your payment, minimize your down payment, take all the tax advantages that are available for a lease, while still giving you the ability to move in and out of cars and accumulate equity. So they structure it in a very unique way that's hugely advantageous, gives you a lot more buying power, and their customer service is absolutely incredible. So we love Mitch and their team for their continued support of the channel. We thank them for that, but please visit them at the link in the description below and find out how easy it is to buy your dream car through Premier Financial Services.